The moment this guy opens his eyes, he freezes. He's no longer in the real world. He's inside his favorite game, and it gets worse. When he looks around, he sees goblins slaughtering helpless farmers right in front of him. The villagers scream at him to run for his life. But at that exact moment, a system window pops up, calmly asking him one thing: which class does he want to choose? This forces Allan to make a strategic choice at his job selection screen. While most would choose a combat class, he selects the crafter. In the original game, this was considered a useless trap job given that the items created were usually weak. However, Allan realizes that in a reality where his past knowledge carries over, he can exploit a specific mechanic, the ability to create anything as long as he understands its physical structure. With Allan having spent his previous life studying modern technology and complex engineering, he isn't limited to medieval tools. He holds out his hands and uses his mana to craft a modern assault rifle, a weapon with power far beyond what a level 1 character should possess. The villagers are stunned to see a supposedly weak crafter wielding such a strange device. Our protagonist simply cocks the weapon and opens fire, riddling the goblins with bullets. In a world stuck in the Middle Ages, being able to manifest modern ballistics makes the crafter class a god-tier profession. To help the village defend itself, Allan crafts 2 more rifles and hands them to the locals. Although they are hesitant and fear hitting their allies, the young man explains that he has programmed a restriction into the weapons, so they can only damage monsters. He even shoots one of the villagers in the chest to prove they are safe, much to the man's initial terror. As the villagers begin gunning down the remaining goblins, a level-up notification appears before Allan. He realizes that when others use his crafted gear to kill enemies, a portion of those experience points flows back to him as the creator. This revelation makes leveling up incredibly efficient. As a token of gratitude, a villager hands him a fire magic stone harvested from a fallen goblin. These stones are usually sold for money at guilds, but our hero decides to experiment with his crafting skills instead. Just then, a big level 13 goblin knight appears, acting as a boss for the area. The villagers find that their standard rifles are useless against its heavy shield, and they urge Allan to run. Instead, he leaps forward and uses the magic stone as a raw material for a new creation. By consuming the stone's energy, he crafts a high-powered rocket launcher with a massive attack modifier and explosive attributes. He aims the launcher and fires a single devastating strike that vaporizes the boss in a massive explosion. This victory causes his level to jump straight to 4. He notes that while magic stone weapons are powerful, they break once their energy is spent, meaning he will have to manage his resources carefully. The villagers are left in absolute awe of the rookie who just one-shot a boss. While Allan remains modest about his power, he has inadvertently become the only person capable of shifting the tides of the long-standing war against the Demon Lord. Though he doesn't fully grasp the scale of his impact yet, he is more determined than ever. This time, in this new life, he is certain he will be the first to reach the very top. The story continues as Allan finds himself in a rocky canyon facing a massive rock golem. Although he has already climbed to level 13, he realizes this level 20 beast is much larger than he anticipated. He attempts to handle the situation with his standard black assault rifle, but the results are disappointing. Since the golem is made of stone, the bullets merely chip away small fragments that the monster instantly repairs with green regenerative energy. Our protagonist observes that despite boosting his weapon's attack power to 175, physical strikes are simply not enough to overcome such overwhelming defensive and healing abilities. This challenge forces him to experiment with a new crafting technique. He decides to add a specialized attachment to his rifle, manifesting a metal slot designed to hold magical materials. By integrating a magic stone he previously harvested from a golem into this new slot, he aims to bypass the creature's natural armor. The process causes blue lightning to surge through the weapon, transforming its appearance into a patterned gray design. This modification successfully infuses his ammunition with a pierce effect, a powerful attribute that allows his shots to ignore physical defense entirely. When the golem lunges forward to crush him, Allan fires a single upgraded shot. As the bullet now carries magical piercing properties, it triggers a massive explosion that shatters the monster into thousands of pebbles. This victory pushes our hero to level 14. He takes a moment to examine his gear and notes a specific limitation of this system. While the weapon itself remains intact, the magic stone used for the add-on breaks after the energy is spent. This is actually a relief for him, as it means he only has to replace the consumable stone rather than rebuilding the entire firearm. As he picks up a new yellow magic stone from the remains, he hits level 15. This rapid growth is fueled by more than just his own battles. A notification reveals that villagers he previously helped have successfully defended their home from an orc horde using the rifles he gave them. Having traveled to various farming villages to distribute these modern weapons, Allan is now receiving a steady stream of experience points from across the land. He views this as a form of passive income, allowing him to grow stronger while simultaneously making the world a safer place. He feels fully vindicated in his choice to become a crafter. However, this unprecedented growth catches the attention of the Adventurer Guild headquarters. Inside an assembly hall, high-ranking officials stare at a magical mirror displaying Allan's data in disbelief. They find it impossible that a rookie could jump from level 4 to 15 in a mere 4 days, especially with a job class they consider to be trash. To investigate, a dark-haired man projects a recording of Allan's recent fight against the rock golem. The spectators are stunned to see a level 15 adventurer using strange technology to effortlessly destroy a high-defense monster. They conclude that while his level is low, his actual firepower is equivalent to a level 50 warrior. A stern man in glasses watches the footage with a sinister interest, suggesting that Allan might be the specific vessel the guild has been searching for. Unaware that he is being watched, our protagonist moves on to a desert region to test his limits against a level 27 sandworm boss. He reasons that while the creature has high health, its low defense makes it the perfect target for testing stacked modifiers. He crafts a new handgun with a massive base attack power and adds an option that further increases its strength. To ensure his safety, he also applies a freeze add-on using a magic stone. When the worm lunges, Allan fires a streak of bullets that instantly encases the giant beast in a pillar of ice. The frozen monster shatters into shards, confirming for Allan that his god-tier profession can even one-shot boss-class enemies with a simple handgun. As the sun sets, our hero heads into a nearby town to exchange his massive haul of magic stones for currency. He approaches the guild counter and presents a mountain of colored gems, which leaves the receptionist speechless. When he identifies himself as Allan, the woman's demeanor changes instantly. She frantically runs away from the counter, leaving him standing there in confusion. Suddenly, the room is swarmed by heavily armored guards in blue and silver plate mail. A silver-armored guard informs him that he is under suspicion and must be taken to headquarters immediately. Before Allan can even process the situation or defend himself, blue magical chains wrap around his body, placing the powerful crafter under arrest. Inside a high-end meeting hall at the Adventurers Guild headquarters, several high-ranking officials sit around a large table while Allan stands in the center, restricted by magical chains. The master of the guild orders the guards to release him, causing the magical bindings to shatter and vanish. As the magic dissipates, the master confirms the young man's identity and offers an apology for the aggressive greeting. He explains that his curiosity was piqued on account of how rapidly the boy has been leveling up, making a personal meeting necessary. Allan appears completely unfazed by the arrest and casually rubs his wrists while asking what the guild actually wants from him. An agitated council member suddenly slams his hands on the table and demands to know the technical details of the strange weapon known as a gun. Allan thoughtfully declines to explain, noting that the technology is far beyond the understanding of people in this world. This response prompts a condescending remark from another councilman who suggests that a mere crafter is likely exaggerating the weapon's importance. Recognizing this as a cheap provocation to extract information, our hero decides to provide a physical example instead. He activates his craft ability, manifesting a modern assault rifle in a swirl of blue energy. As the weapon floats onto the table, the council members view its status and are horrified to see an attack power of 50. Since this power scales with the user's level and allows for 30 consecutive shots, they realize it possesses the destructive potential of a high-ranking knight. While the officials reel from this discovery, Allan turns to leave, stating that he is busy chasing a level 9999 cap and has no time to waste. The master stops him to ask if his ultimate goal is to defeat the Demon King. Allan admits that he intends to handle the threat, especially given the devastation the demon army has caused to human cities. He tells them to make an appointment next time and prepares to exit. Before he can leave, the master suggests that joining an adventurer clan would make his leveling more efficient and offers to introduce him to a prestigious A-rank group. This causes a frantic argument among the other council members, who all begin shouting and trying to recruit him into their own favored organizations. Allan silences the chaos by explaining that he has no interest in joining a group due to his preference for moving freely. The stunned officials eventually accept his refusal, and he departs the room. Once he is gone, the guildmaster decides to summon the finest blacksmiths in the land to analyze the rifle left behind, as they cannot believe a level 15 crafter could produce such advanced machinery. The scene shifts to the entrance of the Wolf Mine dungeon, where a large crowd of adventurers has gathered. Allan notes that even in this reality, the areas outside instance dungeons are always busy. When a party recruiter tries to invite him, the man catches sight of his level 15 status and runs away in terror, warning others that the boy is far too weak for a level 25 dungeon. Allan ignores the insults, knowing that fighting enemies 10 levels higher than himself is the most efficient way to grind with the level difference modifier. Suddenly, a woman's scream cuts through the crowd. A high-level swordsman named Lucas has cornered a priestess named Emma and is trying to force her into his party. The surrounding adventurers whisper in fear, acknowledging that Lucas is a notorious bully who uses his level 65 status to prey on women inside dungeons. When Emma tries to refuse, Lucas and his thugs become even more aggressive. To stop the harassment, Allan uses his craft ability to manifest a giant bronze hand from the ground, which slams Lucas into the dirt. Our hero casually walks past the trembling girl, claiming the bronze statue was just a misfire during a distance crafting test. This infuriates Lucas, who springs up with a red face and draws a massive broadsword to kill the person who embarrassed him. However, following his realization that Allan is only level 15, the swordsman decides that killing such a weak opponent would ruin his reputation and sheathes his weapon. As our protagonist tries to walk away with Emma, Lucas blocks their path to the dungeon. He proposes a time attack contest to see who can clear the dungeon faster, declaring that if he wins, he will beat Allan's face in and take Emma as his prize. Despite the girl's protest that the match is unfair, our hero sighs and accepts the challenge. He tells Lucas that he doesn't even care about a reward for winning, as defeating a small fry like him wouldn't amount to much anyway. This blunt insult leaves the swordsman paralyzed with rage, viewing Allan as an arrogant fool who doesn't understand the massive gap in their power. Later, at the Wolf Mine dungeon entrance, the atmosphere is tense on account of the massive level gap facing Allan. Emma gazes at Allan with deep concern since he is only level 15, while the recommended strength for this cavern is level 25. Our boy remains completely unfazed, explaining that he planned to hunt here from the very beginning. As they walk toward the blue portal, Lucas mockingly suggests that a solo player like Allan should recruit some scrubs to help him. Our protagonist pauses just long enough to deliver a stinging insult, pointing out that for a level 65, Lucas certainly seems unable to do anything without a flock of followers. This observation leaves the swordsman in a state of pure rage while the young crafter dismissively waves him off and continues toward the entrance. Emma is determined not to let Allan face the danger alone, so she sends a digital party invitation his way. Although he initially hovers his finger over the decline button with a tired expression, she desperately clings to his arm and pleads to accompany him. She feels responsible for the current situation and refuses to let him go solo. Recognizing her stubbornness, the guy sighs and finally accepts the request. As they prepare to enter, Lucas shouts a final malicious comment, revealing his dark intentions to cause trouble for Emma later. Unfazed, our protagonist checks the dungeon records and notes that the all-time fastest clear is just over 19 minutes. He feels confident that he can shatter this record with ease. Upon entering the dark, fleshy halls of the mine, the pair is immediately swarmed by high-level bats, caterpillars, and undead warriors. The sheer number of monsters terrifies Emma, as she believes they have no hope of breaking through. Allan views the horde as nothing more than a flock of scrubs and tells his companion to put away her useless staff. Given that she is now part of his party, he decides she needs to fight properly. He activates his craft ability, manifesting a pair of submachine guns directly into her hands. Emma is stunned by the weapon's massive attack power, but Allan explains that these guns are a technology only he can manifest. He instructs her on the simple logic of pulling the trigger and begins tearing through the monster mob with his own rifles. While Emma begins firing, she quickly becomes overwhelmed by the intense recoil he purposely built into the weapons. Our protagonist explains that with the enemies being so densely packed, she will hit something even if she just sprays bullets randomly. He urges her to stop chatting so they can rush straight to the boss. Meanwhile, in another part of the mine, Lucas and his party have cleared their own path. A companion points out that Lucas purposefully provoked Allan as this dungeon spawns a special additional boss for first-time challengers. The swordsman grins maliciously, hoping the newbie is killed by the encounter so he can feel vindicated for the earlier embarrassment. On the other side of the dungeon, Allan and Emma reach the stone doors of the deepest chamber in less than 10 minutes. Our hero deadpans that they could have finished twice as fast if Emma hadn't triggered so many traps along the way. While he has gained 3 levels from the trek, Emma has only gained 1. Leading Allan to realize that his passive income from the farmers provides far more experience than standard dungeoneering. Emma is now eager to finish the time attack and urges him forward. As the doors grind open, 2 massive figures emerge from the purple mist instead of 1. They are faced with both the Queen and King Werewolf, a dual boss encounter reserved for first-timers. The werewolves lunge forward with incredible speed, causing Allan to realize that these monsters are the worst possible matchup for guns due to their high evasion. He instructs Emma to provide suppressive fire to buy him some time. Even though she fires rapidly, the creatures move like blurs and dodge every single shot. The enemies split up to flank them, forcing our hero to divide their targets. He takes on the king and leaves the queen to Emma, despite her panicked protests that she can't hit a moving target. The queen werewolf lunges through the air with her claws extended toward the cowering priestess, but this is exactly what Allan expected to happen. He remains perfectly calm and clenches his fist as energy pixelates around his hand, allowing him to trigger his craft ability from a distance. In an instant, magical jaws of energy snap shut around the legs of both the king and queen werewolves. This surprise trap bites deep into their flesh and causes blood to splatter as the monsters are slammed into the ground. Emma watches in a state of trembling shock because the terrifying beasts have been completely pinned. Allan looks back at his companion with a calm gaze and explains that he only needed her to buy him a few seconds of time. The priestess stares at the restrained monsters in disbelief, since she had no idea the craft skill could be used for crowd control in such a way. Our hero is satisfied with the result as it confirms his earlier tests regarding distance crafting were successful. He turns his attention back to the king werewolf and produces a black handgun. Given that the monster is bound and unable to dodge his shots, Allan views the boss as nothing more than a common mob. With a cold expression, he pulls the trigger and ends the creature's life. As the remains of the boss drift away into purple particles, our guy reaches down to collect a purple magic stone from the floor. Emma runs toward him while excitedly waving her submachine guns to report that she has finished off the queen as well. A notification suddenly appears to announce that they have cleared the wolf mine in just 9 minutes and 48 seconds. Because this is a new all-time record, the priestess is glowing with joy. Allan notes the time and quietly decides that he will return to break this record solo later to claim the top spot for himself. With the dungeon finished, they both head toward the blue exit portal. Outside the dungeon, local villagers are busy thanking other adventurers for their help. While our hero and his companion walk through the crowd, the priestess asks about the submachine gun she is still holding. Allan casually tells her she can keep using it. Their presence causes a stir among the nearby adventurers who recognize them from the earlier argument with Lucas. They assume it is impossible for the pair to have finished so quickly and mockingly, suggest that the rookies must have given up and run away, while the bullies weren't looking. Our boy stops and looks back sharply to correct them, stating plainly that they have already cleared the dungeon. This claim causes the other adventurers to laugh because they think he is telling a transparent lie to save face. They even offer not to tell Lucas about their supposed cowardice if he will just be honest. Allan remains unfazed and tells them to check the record crystal behind them, as their names should now be at the top. The skeptics think this is a joke since a level 15 crafter shouldn't even meet the level requirement for the area, let alone set a world record. When one man finally touches the crystal, his eyes widen as the official ranking is displayed. The crowd is frozen in shock to see that Allan and Emma have indeed set a record of 9 minutes and 48 seconds. They cannot comprehend how a supposedly weak class achieved something that took everyone else much longer. Our hero provides a hint by manifesting multiple guns in the air and explaining that his unique weapons are the answer to their confusion. One adventurer examines the submachine gun and is overwhelmed to see an attack power of 153, which is incredibly high for their level. Emma happily demonstrates how easy the weapon is to use by mimicking the firing action, while the crowd grows increasingly frantic to see the gear for themselves. As Allan walks away to avoid wasting more time, he passes a girl with long white hair and red clothing, who watches him with intense yellow eyes. She remains silent as he disappears into the distance. A few dozen minutes later, Lucas and his party finally emerge from the dungeon portal looking exhausted but confident. Having finished in just under 50 minutes, the swordsman is certain they have won the time attack. He sits on the ground with his teammates to wait for the rookies to come out so they can gloat. His companions laugh and suggest that the kids are likely dead by now. The adventurer who checked the crystal earlier approaches the group and informs Lucas that his opponents have already gone home. The swordsman initially laughs and assumes they tucked tail and ran, but the man corrects him by explaining that they actually cleared the dungeon. Lucas refuses to believe that two losers could beat his time, but the adventurer insists they cleared it faster than anyone else in history. Following this news, the bully lunges at the record crystal himself. When he sees the names of Allan and Emma next to the 9-minute mark, his face pales with terror and sweat. Realizing he has been utterly defeated by someone he looked down upon, Lucas falls to his knees and screams in pure rage. The scene shifts to a dark, moonlit office where a man sits at a desk. He reviews a file containing photos of Allan and his modern weapons, noting that the record-breaking strength makes him the real deal. He summons a masked assassin into the room to discuss a request. The man slides the folder and a heavy bag of coins across the desk, making it clear that the young crafter has become a major target. With a final direct order, he tells the assassin to kill Allan. Wary of Lucas's retaliation, Emma decides to relocate her base for safety. Standing in a walled courtyard, she bows deeply to thank Allan for his protection. When Allan neutrally offers to drive the bully away himself, Emma refuses with quiet determination, asserting that as an adventurer, she must stand on her own feet. Allan respects her resolve and bids her farewell. With a final playful spark, Emma jokingly warns him not to break her wolf mine record before skipping away. A digital notification appears confirming Emma has left the party. A few days later, the scene transitions to a vast desert canyon, where our boy has come to test the limits of his crafting abilities. Now at level 24, he reaches out his hand and allows energy to swirl around him as he activates his craft skill. He thinks to himself that his future efficiency depends on this working correctly. A surge of blue lightning strikes the ground, and a modern military tank materializes before him. After confirming the exterior is flawless, Allan climbs into the dark cockpit. He is pleased to find the monitors and controls have been perfectly replicated, but when he commands the vehicle to move forward, it sits completely still. He realizes that while he can create complex structures like an AK-47 or various traps, amorphously structured things like water, electricity, and gasoline cannot be created. Luckily, this failure was within his expectations, and he already has a countermeasure ready. Since the world of Zero Fantasy Online utilizes magic stones as a general-purpose energy source, he reasons that his modern machines should be able to run on them as well. He presses a green magic stone into a slot on the dashboard, and the tank roars to life, kicking up dust as it speeds ahead. However, the victory is short-lived as the engine suddenly grinds to a halt with a puff of smoke. Upon checking the slot, he finds the stone has shattered into useless shards. He realizes that he simply doesn't have the personal power to handle a tank yet, given that a machine of that scale requires much higher quality magic stones than what he currently possesses. The tank dissolves back into pixels, leaving Allan alone in the canyon. Despite the setback, he is encouraged by the fact that magic stones can indeed act as a power source, so he decides to try something smaller. He holds out his hand and crafts a voice recognition drone equipped with 4 rotors. The device whirs into the sky at his command, and while flying above the rocky cliffs, Allan monitors a live video feed on a tablet. He notes that the drone could even be used for combat if he equipped it with a gun. While reviewing the footage, he spots several silhouettes hiding behind the rocks nearby. Recognizing that he is being watched, he recalls the thugs from the wolf mine and senses a strong bloodlust coming from these new observers. As being watched leaves a bad taste in his mouth, Allan manifests a submachine gun with a drum magazine and begins running toward the hidden figures to ask about their business directly. High on a ledge, 5 cloaked assassins notice him approaching. They are level 65 veterans and assume a low-level player shouldn't be able to sense them due to their passive stealth skills. Their confidence is shattered when Allan suddenly appears right behind them. The group jumps back in shock, and the leader, a gray-haired man in a purple mask, orders his team to kill the boy since they have been spotted. One assassin expresses concern about the speed of Allan's weapon, but the boss dismisses the threat. He mistakenly believes that Allan's guns cannot damage humans based on previous observations, and he reminds his team that their target is only in his level 20s. Our hero looks at them with a cold gaze and tells the leader that he has it backward before calling him an idiot. The assassins surround Allan at the edge of the canyon, and the leader mockingly calls his team cowards as they suddenly vanish using high-level stealth skills. Allan realizes he is dealing with highly skilled professionals, but he remains calm because he chose a weapon specifically suited for rapid fire. As an assassin lunges through the air behind him with a blade, claiming the gun won't leave a scratch, Allan spins around and pulls the trigger. The submachine gun flashes rapidly, riddling all 5 men with bullets and spraying blood across the desert floor. With the cloaked men falling, our hero tells them they should have come up with a better plan if they wanted to challenge someone with a submachine gun. He walks toward the bleeding leader, who is trembling on the ground in disbelief that the bullets actually cause damage. Allan explains that while he normally keeps a safety restriction on his weapons to prevent accidental harm to humans, he turned it off on account of them looking suspicious from the very beginning. He levels the barrel at the man's head and demands to know who hired them. The boss gives a creepy smile and explains that as assassins, they simply do whatever job they are given. He tells Allan that he might not have done anything wrong, but a certain big shot wants him dead as he is simply too strong. Before our hero can learn more about this mysterious client, the assassin bites down on a hidden poison pill and dies. Following the body dissolving, Allan is left confused, wondering why anyone would be afraid of a player who is only level 24. His thoughts are interrupted when a girl with long white hair appears nearby. She praises him for turning the tables on veteran assassins, and when Allan suspiciously asks if she is with them, she laughs and claims she is actually on his side. This girl named Melissa further proposes a partnership, suggesting that teaming up would be a beneficial arrangement. Allan immediately rejects the offer with a dismissive gaze, asserting that he has no need for teamwork now or ever. However, a brief memory of Emma trapped in the wolf mine flashes through his mind, forcing him to acknowledge that there was at least one person he worked with previously. Melissa is visibly annoyed by his prickly attitude but quickly shifts tactics to grab his attention. Standing over the remains of the fallen assassins, she reveals that she has information regarding who hired them and offers to share it in exchange for his cooperation. This revelation causes Allan to turn back with an intense and serious look. Before she provides the answer, Melissa seeks to confirm his identity as the adventurer who shattered the wolf mine speed record. He finds the question unnecessary and suggests she simply check his status, but she points out that he currently has his information hidden from public view. Realizing he likely toggled the setting by accident due to the annoyance of his growing fame, the young man adjusts his interface to reveal his data. When the status screen appears, Melissa is shocked to discover that the hero who cleared a high-level dungeon in record time is only level 24. She admits to herself that she expected him to be at least level 80 and is caught off guard by his relatively low level. Fairness dictates that she show her own status in return, revealing her as a level 50 sorcerer. Once the introductions are settled, Allan brings the conversation back to the hit put out on him. Melissa confirms she wants something in return for the name of the culprit and points toward the sky to indicate her price. High above the clouds floats the Crystal Sky Castle, a top-tier dungeon with a recommended level of 50. She explains that the area is incredibly dangerous since it is packed with a massive variety of random monsters and bosses, making it impossible to prepare for specific encounters. Because the castle is also filled with lethal traps that can kill seasoned veterans instantly, the difficulty is considered extreme. At the very bottom of the dungeon lies the Crystal Dragon, a boss in a completely different league than anything else. The sorcerer specifically wants Allan to help her retrieve the Jade Dragon Orb, a top-tier material dropped by the final boss. While she secretly doubts a level 24 player can survive such a place, our hero accepts the deal without a single moment of hesitation. This immediate agreement shocks Melissa, who wonders if he even heard her warnings about the level requirement and the danger. Allan casually dismisses her concerns, noting that he likely knows more about the dungeon than she does. Privately, he reflects on having cleared the castle countless times in his past life. He decides to play along simply as he needs to eliminate whoever is targeting him, so he can get back to his grind without interference. As they prepare to move out, Melissa stops him to explain a major logistical hurdle. With the castle being at an extreme altitude, adventurers usually have to submit a government application to undergo a teleportation rite. Allan realizes this is the equivalent of talking to a teleportation NPC in the original game. Unfortunately, the rite has a strict level requirement, meaning players below level 40 are locked out. Given that he is only level 24, Melissa believes they are stuck. She further argues that a party of 2 is insufficient, claiming they need a dedicated tank for defense and a healer for buffs. As a sorcerer who focuses on area of effect magic, she explains she cannot deal enough single-target damage to defeat the boss alone. She suggests taking the next 3 months to grind Allan's level up to 40, but the guy refuses to wait. He explains that his goal is to be the first person in the world to hit level 999, and he has no intention of letting trivial matters like level requirements slow him down. Melissa views this as unrealistic, but the young crafter begins analyzing the mechanics of the world. He reasons that while the castle is too high for standard flight magic, there must be a physical way to reach it without the rite. He activates his craft skill and produces a small 4-rotor drone, which he powers with a blue magic stone. Melissa watches in confusion while the device whirs to life and obeys his commands. The drone ascends through the clouds and successfully reaches the outer walls of the castle, proving that there are no magical barriers preventing a physical approach. While Melissa is excited and suggests they build a giant version of the drone to carry a full party of adventurers, Allan rejects the idea. He explains that a larger drone would have terrible fuel efficiency and would likely crash. He further stuns her by stating that they don't need any more party members and that he could likely clear the dungeon solo. To solve the transportation issue, he reveals that he isn't going to use magic stones as a power source. Instead, he plans to utilize a completely different energy source. This leaves the sorcerer looking over her shoulder in total confusion. Allan needs her to understand his plan, so he clarifies that the energy source for their journey is actually Melissa herself. She is understandably shocked by the revelation, but he reminds her that a sorcerer can manipulate various attributes like fire and wind. He intends to use those skills as fuel. He activates his craft skill in a surge of blue digital particles to create a solution. A big wicker basket and a pile of white fabric materialize on the ground, which he identifies as a hot air balloon. To get things moving, he tells Melissa to climb into the basket and use her wind magic to inflate the fabric. She focuses her power and sends a spiral of green wind magic upward, successfully filling the balloon. Next, Allan explains that they need to heat the air inside to create lift. He suggests she use a spell called Flame Hand since it consumes the least amount of mana. Once she coats her arms in orange flames, the air inside the balloon heats up and the basket suddenly lifts off the ground. Melissa is terrified by the sudden ascent, but Allan calmly explains that they are floating due to the difference in air density. He warns her that she must keep the fire going until they reach the dungeon, as the air cooling would cause them to fall to their deaths. Although she worries about wasting her mana before the actual fighting begins, he reassures her that he will handle any enemies they encounter. This display of ingenuity causes Melissa to look at him with growing curiosity. Despite his low level, she begins to believe that they might actually be able to clear this top-tier dungeon together. The pair successfully arrives at the stone gates of the Crystal Sky Castle. Melissa is exhausted and shaking from the effort of powering their flight, but Allan congratulates her on a job well done. As they enter the hallway, they notice several other adventurer parties are already inside. Our hero notes that this is an open dungeon, meaning they are in a race against others. Another group finishing first would force them out, so he decides they should ignore the weaker monsters and rush toward the goal. While they run through the castle, Melissa tries to explain the layout of the 3 floors. She is stunned when Allan reveals he already knows they need to collect 3 crystals from the lower floor to advance. He playfully refuses to explain how he knows this information, reminding her of her own earlier secretive behavior. Their progress is suddenly halted when they round a corner and find a crowd of adventurers blocked by a level 45 abyss minotaur. Melissa suggests they find a different floor to avoid the confrontation, but Allan refuses to waste time on longer routes. Allan walks past the stalling adventurers and tells them to step aside if they aren't going to fight. The other warriors mock him after seeing his low level, jokingly inviting the rookie to take on the boss himself. While Melissa frantically warns him that her mana hasn't recovered enough to help, our hero remains unfazed. He produces a magic stone harvested from a sandworm and activates his craft skill. A launcher materializes in his arms, boasting a staggering attack power of over 30,000 with its bonuses included. As the Minotaur roars and prepares to strike, Allan pulls the trigger with a cold expression. A massive explosion engulfs the boss, vaporizing it instantly. The surrounding adventurers are left speechless by the one-shot kill as a notification confirms the boss has been defeated. This victory pushes our hero to level 25. While the others struggle to process what they just witnessed, Allan calmly collects the yellow crystal reward, along with a new magic stone from the monster's remains. He immediately sprints forward to the next area, leaving a stunned Melissa to wonder if the crafter job is actually a dud class at all. They eventually reach a ledge overlooking a dark pit known as the Path of the Abyss. The crowd of adventurers is stuck here due to the floor appearing cut off. Our protagonist explains that the path isn't gone but is actually just transparent. To prove the danger, he watches as a man steps forward and falls into the darkness. Allan notes that while the standard strategy involves using a staff to feel for the floor, doing so would just cause the other parties to follow and crowd them. Melissa suggests he simply build a bridge, but the young man points out that if skills were allowed, people would have just used flight magic. He asks her to try casting a spell, and she realizes that magic and skills are completely restricted in this specific area. This means Allan cannot use his craft ability either, but he maintains a confident look as he prepares to reveal another solution. He stands ready to proceed, with only 2 crystals left to find before they can reach the middle floors. Although the dungeon's magic restriction prevents him from using his craft ability directly, he realizes he can still pull items from his inventory that he prepared earlier. He manifests a blue digital device with multiple lenses, which naturally spikes Melissa's curiosity. Allan explains that these are night vision goggles he created using a magic stone from an evil bat. Detecting infrared light, these goggles allow him to see the thermal signature of the hidden path that is otherwise invisible to the naked eye. This revelation shocks Melissa, who recalls a moment during their hot air balloon ride where the protagonist was focused on crafting while she was simply enjoying the view. She begins to realize that her partner has a level of insight into the dungeon's mechanics that shouldn't be possible for a rookie. Once the goggles are on, the world transforms into a green, translucent maze in Allan's vision, showing him exactly where the floor is. To save time and ensure they don't fall, he suddenly scoops Melissa up into a princess carry. While she panics at the sudden physical contact, he tells her to stay quiet so she doesn't bite her tongue. He then sprints directly into the empty air, running across the invisible path at high speed. The other adventurers on the platform can only watch in total disbelief as a low-level player seemingly flies across the abyss. Melissa begs him to slow down, but Allan remains perfectly calm until they land safely on solid ground on the other side. They soon reach a fork in the hallway where the path splits. Our protagonist notes that while both ways eventually lead to a crystal, it is better to stay together to ensure Melissa's safety. He admits that if she dies, he loses his only source of information regarding the assassins who are targeting him. This logic prompts them to move toward the path of condemnation, a narrow bridge guarded by giant blood-stained scythes that swing back and forth. With the magic restriction lifted in this area, Allan produces a rifle and fires several high-powered shots, shattering the traps into pieces. Melissa is relieved to see that her own magic is also available again, and they rush forward to the Room of Precipices. Standing before an impossibly high wall, the pair finds that the surface is covered in a purple, slippery slime that makes climbing impossible. Melissa suggests using the balloon again, but Allan explains that such a large device would be overkill for this specific hurdle. Instead, he activates his craft skill to manifest a vertical metal platform equipped with railings and a control panel. He introduces this as an elevator, a concept entirely foreign to Melissa. By pressing a single button, the platform carries them straight to the top, where they successfully claim the second crystal. The search for the final crystal leads them to the Room of the Poison Swamp, a cavern filled with a green lake of toxic water. Melissa expects another mysterious invention, but she is slightly disappointed when Allan simply crafts a basic wooden rowing boat. He explains that a simple solution is best for a simple problem, but he leaves out the oars on purpose. This forces Melissa to act as the engine, using her wind magic to create a vortex that propels the boat across the toxic lake. While she feels the burden of the work is a bit lopsided, they quickly reach the pedestal and obtain the third and final crystal. As they finish the floor, Melissa reflects on how easy the journey has been. While Allan attributes their success to the crafter job being the strongest profession, the sorcerer realizes the truth is that the man himself is the one who is exceptional. She watches him walk away, convinced that she is witnessing the rise of an adventurer who will eventually make history. A few minutes later, they arrive at the transfer room. Allan inserts the 3 glowing crystals into a central pedestal, triggering a teleportation rite that sends them to the middle floors. They arrive in a blue-lit hall facing a swirling dark blue portal. Our hero observes that the layout is strange, as it feels like a dungeon within a dungeon, comparing it to a Matryoshka doll. When Melissa asks what that is, he promises to craft one for her after they conquer the castle. However, before they can step through the final portal, Melissa's expression turns serious. She stops him and places her hand over her chest, looking him directly in the eye to propose a match between them before they go any further. Since she has gathered intelligence on the middle floors, she understands that the first section consists of a dark chamber filled with a massive swarm of weak monsters. Since the dungeon records the number of kills during this battle, she confidently suggests a competition to see who can take down the most enemies. Allan initially looks at her flatly, noting that the conditions are skewed in her favor as her job as a sorcerer is built for area of effect attacks, while his firearms are typically for single targets. Melissa remains provocative, explaining that her magic is more than just a power source for transportation and that she intends to prove the true worth of her class. Our boy calmly accepts the challenge, reasoning that a little competition will help them clear the floor faster anyway. They agree that the loser must treat the winner to a top-shelf potion once they are finished. Entering the first floor of the middle section, the pair is immediately faced with a horde of 1,500 monsters, standing ready in the darkness. As the trial begins, Melissa wastes no time and envelops herself in dark energy to cast a massive purple explosion called Black Nebula. As this magic consumes a large portion of the charging army at once, she feels confident in her clearing power. However, the young crafter steps forward and uses his skill to manifest a massive Gatling gun with a staggering attack power of 500. Although he cannot move while firing the heavy weapon, its automatic reloading and incredible rate of fire allow him to shred through rows of monsters like a hot knife through butter. Melissa is left in total shock since the technology is on a completely different level than standard magic. Despite her refusal to surrender, the gap in their efficiency becomes undeniable. 2 minutes later, the holographic scoreboards reveal the final results. Allan has secured 811 kills, while Melissa has only managed 689. As our protagonist stands calmly over the defeated horde, the sorcerer sits on the floor in a state of exhaustion, unable to believe she lost in her own area of expertise. He tells her not to be too downcast, suggesting that she simply picked the wrong opponent. Melissa watches him walk away, fully realizing now that she is dealing with a complete outlier who defies the logic of their world. They transition into the stone halls of the second middle floor, which Allan identifies as the final hurdle before the Crystal Dragon's chamber. Melissa remarks on how easy the dungeon feels with him by her side despite its extreme difficulty rating, but their conversation is cut short when a bright light erupts at the end of the hall. A massive crystal ogre riding a crystal manticore emerges, both at level 50. Melissa assumes they need to find a way to split the duo up to handle their coordinated attacks, but Allan has a more direct solution. He crafts a sleek black rocket launcher, though Melissa notices its 16,000 attack power is actually lower than the one he used previously. Our hero explains that this is a standard build rather than an overboosted Magic Stone version, meaning it won't break after a single shot. As the bosses charge, Allan realizes the manticore has high evasion and will likely dodge a frontal assault. This forces him to change tactics, so he instructs Melissa to freeze the ground with her ice magic. Once the stone floor becomes slick with ice, the charging beast is forced to leap into the air to maintain its momentum. This is exactly what our boy wanted, as a creature without wings has no mobility once it is suspended in midair. He aims for a direct hit to end the fight instantly, but the ogre performs an impossible maneuver by using the manticore's back as a stepping stone to launch itself even higher. The rocket vaporizes the manticore in a massive explosion, but the ogre remains unharmed and begins descending from the ceiling with its club raised. Our protagonist is caught off guard by a movement pattern that shouldn't exist in the game's logic. As the ogre's shadow covers him, Melissa panics knowing Allan is only level 25 and lacks any defensive armor. She realizes that a single hit from a level 50 boss will kill him instantly. In a desperate attempt to save him, she sprints forward, hoping to take the blow in his place, but she quickly realizes with horror that she isn't going to make it in time. Melissa reaches out in a state of total panic, screaming Allan's name as the crystal ogre descends with its massive club. The beast is putting the full weight of its strength into a strike meant to end the fight. Despite the looming threat, our boy stands his ground and aims a handgun directly upward at the monster. He remains perfectly calm and calculating, noting that while the ogre unexpectedly used the manticore as a springboard to evade his first shot, the current scenario is still within his predictions. An explosion suddenly fills the area, followed by a digital notification indicating that his weapon is reloading. Allan stands in confidence because he had already factored this specific timing into his plan. A second massive explosion of fire erupts, forcing Melissa to shield her eyes from the intensity of the blast. As the smoke clears, a badge appears to confirm Allan has reached level 26. He takes a breath of relief, as the outcome is exactly what he anticipated. Melissa looks at him with wide eyes, stunned that he was able to fire again when she thought he had run out of ammunition. Allan explains that his rocket launcher features an auto-reload function that triggers the moment the ammo count hits 0. He admits to her that the situation was actually quite dangerous, noting that if the reload hadn't finished in time, he would have died. While Melissa finds him unusually calm for someone who just faced death, the young crafter explains that he simply moves with composure because he already accounted for the second shot before the battle even began. After picking up a purple magic stone from the remains, he sets his sights on their final objective, the crystal dragon. Melissa watches him, thinking about how she has seen many strong adventurers, but none who possess his level of absolute confidence. She realizes this unique strength is exactly why high-ranking figures are targeting his life. The pair eventually arrives at the upper floors of the castle, standing before a giant ornate golden door. While Melissa prepares for a final battle behind that gate, Allan stops her and points out that the door is just for show. He explains that this floor utilizes a portal system similar to the middle floors, and since the portal isn't visible, it means someone else is already inside challenging the boss. This news stresses Melissa out, as she fears they will have to start over if another party clears the dungeon first. Our hero tells her that panicking is useless and suggests they sit down to formulate a strategy while they wait. He warns her that the Crystal Dragon is an epic-class monster, which is a grade even higher than a standard boss. These creatures possess unique traits, and in the dragon's case, it has a damage cap that negates any power exceeding a certain limit. This makes Allan's overwhelming firepower less effective, forcing them to rely on a specific plan. He instructs Melissa to focus on wiping out the endless waves of minor enemies that will spawn, while he handles the boss and its instant kill attack. Suddenly, the blue portal on the wall activates, signaling that the previous party's battle is over. Allan deduces that the other adventurers were likely annihilated, as escaping the boss room is impossible once the fight begins. Although Melissa is nervous about the prospect of facing an enemy that just wiped out a skilled team, our boy reassures her that they will win if they stick to the strategy. As they step through the portal together, he reminds himself that he cannot afford to die until he becomes the first person to reach the level cap. They emerge into a massive coliseum-like arena filled with the bodies of fallen adventurers. Before they can dwell on the sight, dark energy erupts from the ground and the colossal crystal dragon appears, roaring with immense pressure. As blue-skinned minions surround them, Allan tells Melissa not to let the pressure get to her. He materializes a massive Gatling gun and begins shredding through the air with rapid-fire bullets. He knows that while the damage cap is a problem for single heavy strikes, the high volume of shots from a Gatling gun is the perfect counter. Melissa watches in awe as Allan suppresses the epic-class boss, and she begins casting her own magic to clear out the mobs. However, the momentum shifts when Allan's gun makes a clicking sound, indicating he is out of ammo. The crystal dragon seizes the opening and flies into the air to prepare its instant kill attack, the Black Death Flame. As purple energy gathers in the dragon's maw, Allan shouts for Melissa to get back. He leaps forward and uses his craft ability to manifest a massive fire-resistant metal shield directly from the ground. Huddled behind the freestanding barrier, Allan explains that they can survive the instant kill move as long as they avoid direct contact with the flames. He waits for his gun to finish reloading so they can counterattack. Unfortunately, the plan goes awry when cracks begin to form on the shield's surface. Our boy looks on in disbelief, realizing the shield's durability is insufficient to hold back the dragon's power. The barrier shatters into fragments, throwing both of them backward as the dragon continues its assault. Refusing to die in such a place, Allan's eyes fill with rage. He reaches out his hand as massive bolts of energy explode around him, activating his craft skill with a final, desperate surge of power. As the skill activation completes, Allan is holding a red metal cylinder, which leaves Melissa looking on in complete bewilderment. She demands to know what the strange object is, and he calmly identifies it as a modern fire extinguisher. He explains to himself that a fire extinguisher was the most logical tool to manifest for this specific crisis. To ensure it could handle a high-level threat, he fused the device with a magic stone from a crystal ogre. Although he is uncertain if a household tool can stop a monster, the young man bets everything on his ability and sprints toward the dragon's energy blast. He points the nozzle forward and releases a massive surge of pressurized white foam. This spray clashes head-on with the flames, creating a shockwave that completely swallows the dragon's breath. Melissa is stunned to see an epic-grade instant death attack neutralized by such a bizarre device. While his companion stares in awe, Allan casually tosses the extinguisher aside and explains that it isn't a weapon, but simply a tool for its intended purpose. Now that the immediate danger has passed, our protagonist grabs the reloaded heavy Gatling gun again and declares it is time for a counterattack. He pulls the trigger, unleashing a rapid barrage of bullets that causes the dragon's health to drop rapidly. Seeing the strategy is working, Melissa runs forward to join him. He shouts for her to ignore the smaller monsters so they can focus all their power on the boss. Melissa coordinates her magic with his gunfire, causing the crystal dragon's health bar to hit 0 and the beast to shatter into particles. A system notification confirms the dragon has been slain, rewarding our boy with a jump to level 27 and Melissa to level 51. As the arena falls quiet, Melissa notices that Allan seems remarkably unfazed despite the close call they just had. The young man dismisses the comment, stating that winning is the only thing that matters before picking up a new magic stone from the floor. When Melissa asks about the Jade Dragon Orb, he points to a stone treasure chest that appeared after the boss died. He explains the mechanics of dungeon rewards and watches as Melissa opens the chest to find a red, pulsating heart-shaped artifact. Just as the sorcerer reaches for the prize, Allan's demeanor shifts. He draws a handgun and points it directly at her head with a dark expression. He warns her that once she takes the orb, the dungeon will automatically warp them outside, and he hasn't forgotten the deal they made. He demands to know who sent the assassins after him before they leave. Melissa sighs and asks him to put the weapon away, promising to hold up her end of the bargain. After Allan lowers the gun, she reveals a frustrating truth. She doesn't actually know the specific person behind the hit. This causes Allan to raise his weapon again in anger, but Melissa quickly clarifies that she has identified the organization involved. Allan exhales and listens as Melissa reveals that the culprits belong to the Adventurer Guild. This news leaves our hero in genuine shock as the guild's primary purpose is to defeat the Demon King. Melissa explains that since Allan is far too strong for his level, he is a threat to the status quo. If the Demon King is defeated, the world becomes peaceful and the guild would eventually be disbanded. Due to this, certain members are assassinating talented adventurers to protect their own jobs and influence. Our boy realizes this matches what the assassin in the desert told him about big shots, not appreciating his strength. Melissa further explains that there is a specific faction within the guild known as the Demon King's Remnant faction. These individuals don't want the war to end, though they aren't necessarily working with the demon army. She admits that the faction's leader is unknown since its members aren't just guild executives. The group could include anyone from weapon merchants to tavern owners who profit from the continued existence of adventurers. Allan finds the scope of the conspiracy frustrating, but he remains determined. He tells Melissa that he won't allow anyone to interfere with his goal of reaching the level cap. He then asks her how other targeted prospects are handling these assassination attempts, prompting Melissa to awkwardly defend her own status as a promising adventurer before preparing to explain their defensive measures. Later, a surge of magical energy envelops every adventurer inside the Sky Castle, forcibly teleporting them back to the ground. This sudden displacement leaves the crowd in a state of utter confusion as they realize someone has successfully conquered the dungeon. Their shock turns to disbelief when an announcement board materializes in the clear sky, publicly declaring that the party of Allan and Melissa has defeated the boss. While the name Melissa is instantly recognized as belonging to a top-tier sorcerer, the onlookers are baffled by the presence of a second name, since they find it hard to believe a duo could clear an area designed for large, high-level groups. Luckily, the pair appears in front of the crowd. As they walk toward the nearby town, Melissa questions how Allan intends to descend from such a height, since he does not meet the level requirement for the official teleportation ritual. He remains unfazed, suggesting he will simply craft a parachute to handle the drop. Before they can depart, they are swarmed by a mob of high-level adventurers who have gathered to celebrate the clear. These veterans are stunned to see that a two-person team managed to reach the upper floors, and they quickly crown Melissa as a celebrity. Melissa initially tries to bask in the glory, but she soon points directly at Allan to explain that he is the one who actually carried the team. However, when the crowd views his status and sees he is only a level 27 crafter, they react with mockery and skepticism. They view the crafter class as a trash job and find it impossible that a low-level rookie could contribute to such a feat. Seeing all these high-ranking eyes on him, Allan realizes this is a perfect chance to promote his weapons, yet he quickly decides against it. Since standing out too much would draw more unwanted attention from the Demon King's remnants and make his leveling harder, he chooses to downplay his involvement. He tells the crowd a calculated lie, claiming Melissa defeated the dragon alone while he was merely there to handle minor gimmicks. Melissa is surprised by this sudden humility, but she eventually realizes he is deliberately giving her the credit to protect himself. She accepts the praise of the crowd, even though she feels flustered by the realization that she was effectively just tagging along for the ride. Once they reach the royal capital, the two prepare to part ways. Melissa intends to go to the guild to exchange magic stones, but Allan decides to head straight to an inn. He plans to keep his stones as raw materials for his next series of inventions. Their farewell is somewhat blunt, which offends Melissa's pride. She admits that she feels it is unfair to have received the item she wanted while only giving Allan vague information about his enemies. As she hates feeling like she owes him a favor, she vows to use her connections to investigate the Demon King's remnants as thoroughly as possible. She warns him to stay safe and expresses a desire to hunt together again, jokingly promising to carry him next time. Our hero walks away into the sunlight, while Melissa watches him go, reflecting on the fact that even she finds it hard to believe she was just carried by a level 27 crafter. Unfortunately, the peace of the capital is short-lived. Melissa's sharp instincts suddenly detect a surge of bloodlust coming from the shadows. A masked assassin hidden on a rooftop draws back a bow and releases an arrow aimed directly at Allan's back. Melissa screams a warning just as the projectile streaks through the busy street. Since our guy has spent his life honing his reflexes, he performs a quick, calculated dodge. The assassin is stunned by this display of agility and quickly vanishes into the rooftops before Melissa can give chase. This close call makes it clear that the guild's shadow faction is getting desperate enough to attack inside the city walls. Allan realizes that at this rate, he will be unable to walk around or hunt without being constantly harassed. This realization forces him to reconsider a method Melissa mentioned for dealing with persistent threats. Although he initially finds the idea of paying for protection expensive and annoying, he acknowledges that he needs a more permanent solution. He tells Melissa that he will handle things his own way, but recognizes that they are now officially party members. As he continues through the streets alone, Allan reflects on his past life. In the original game, he was a solitary player who viewed companions as dead weight that slowed down his efficiency. However, after his experiences with Emma and now Melissa, he begins to think that having allies might not be so bad after all. He quickly brushes the thought aside, as his primary focus remains the assassins. The next morning, his search for a solution leads him to a grand entrance under a red and gold banner. Despite his preference for solo play, the interference from the Demon King's remnants has finally pushed him to seek out the one place he never thought he would visit: the Clan Association. The story shifts back to one day ago, specifically the moments immediately following the defeat of the Crystal Dragon inside the Sky Castle. While standing in the hallway, Melissa brings up the urgent need for countermeasures against the assassins targeting Allan. She suggests that the most efficient way for him to secure protection is to join an adventurer clan. Although our boy is already familiar with what clans are, he questions how joining a herd of players would actually help stop professional killers. Melissa explains using the logic of the animal kingdom, noting that there is safety in numbers, as predators are less likely to attack a large group. She recommends a high-ranking, large-scale organization since major clans typically have strong ties to influential people. This catches the attention of the boy, as he recalls the guild executives mentioning their own preferred clans during his previous meeting. Since joining a group would allow him to both secure his safety and gather intelligence on his enemies, he decides to follow her advice. Back in the present day, Allan arrives at the bustling clan association hall. As he looks around at the various booths, he wonders how to find a group that fits his specific needs. His presence doesn't go unnoticed, as nearby bystanders begin whispering about his reputation. Even though he is only level 27, he has become famous among the general public for smashing the wolf mine record and clearing the Sky Castle with Melissa. Our hero ignores the attention and focuses on the different reception desks. He notes that every clan has a specific type, such as conquest for clearing dungeons, or others focused on defense, social, subjugation, and gathering. There are also general types that handle a bit of everything. While conquest and subjugation appear to be the most popular, Allan remains indifferent to what others prefer. His search is interrupted when a man with spiky hair named Max approaches and identifies himself as the leader of the Gaziels, a B-rank conquest clan, and asks the young crafter to lend them his strength. Before Allan can respond, a blonde man from a B-rank general clan called the Tigers cuts in, arguing that a versatile group would offer a better experience. The two leaders quickly devolve into a heated argument over who gets to recruit him. This spectacle draws a crowd of recruiters who begin shoving each other to get close to the rumored genius. Even though some onlookers are skeptical of his low level, others believe he must possess a powerful secret. A red-haired woman even tries to entice him with alluring experiences, while others brag about their high ranks or large memberships. The chaos forces Allan to step back and demand silence. He thanks them for the invitations but firmly states that he is only interested in joining a defense clan that is A rank or higher. This specific requirement shocks the crowd as defense clans are known for their strict nature. Our protagonist has a logical reason for this choice, since defense groups have direct connections with government officials and lords, making them the perfect source for gathering intel on the Shadow faction. Furthermore, He plans to use the guise of defense missions to distribute his modern weapons to various cities for more passive experience. He warns the recruiters that if they don't meet these conditions, he has no interest in negotiating. Most of the recruiters immediately lose interest and walk away, leaving Allan worried that he might have been too demanding. Luckily, a man in plate armor named Flynn approaches him. Flynn reveals that he is the master of the Holy Guardian, an A-rank defense clan. Allan is genuinely impressed when he sees that Flynn is level 378, a height rarely reached even in the original game. Flynn looks at him seriously and warns him that their discipline is strict and offers no special treatment. Recalling Melissa's advice that a trial membership would be a good way to test the waters and boost his reputation, Allan agrees to join on a temporary basis. Flynn finds this acceptable and sends a formal invitation through the digital interface. Our boy hits the accept button, officially joining the Holy Guardian. Flynn leads his new recruit to the clan's headquarters, which is a grand white mansion located in the capital. Once inside a quiet office, the leader begins explaining the operational rules of a defense-type clan. He confirms that their main duty is to intercept the Demon King's army at various settlements. However, Allan is disappointed to learn that they strictly operate in three-person parties composed of members with similar levels. This frustrates him, as being tied to a party of low-level players would significantly slow down his progress toward the level cap. Flynn further explains that Allan's current duties will be limited to patrolling the city until his level increases. This situation puts Allan in a difficult spot. Simple patrols offer no experience points, and walking the streets would leave him vulnerable to the same assassins who tried to kill him the day before. He realizes he cannot work under these restrictive conditions, but simply quitting won't solve the problem of the Shadow faction. He concludes that he must participate in high-level defense missions to stay safe and continue his growth. To solve this, Allan looks Flynn in the eye and makes a bold request to bypass the patrol phase. When Flynn insists on following the rules, the young crafter proposes a way to prove his strength. He challenges the high-level master to a duel, stating that if he wins, he must be granted a special exception to the rules. Flynn looks at him with a calm and slightly amused expression, admitting he admires the enthusiasm, but ultimately refuses the challenge. As there is no benefit in it for him, the master suggests that Allan simply participate in normal clan activities for a week before revisiting the conversation. Allan closes his eyes in resignation, deciding that further argument is pointless. He agrees to the terms but reminds himself that since this is only a trial membership, he is prepared to leave if the arrangement doesn't fit. The conversation is interrupted by a knock at the door, signaling the arrival of the group members Allan will be working with. Flynn introduces them as Naoki and Hina, a pair of lancers. Naoki is a level 55 adventurer who immediately greets the newcomer with a confident and energetic attitude, while Hina is a level 40 who offers a warm smile. Our boy is internally skeptical of the pairing since party members usually share similar levels, but Flynn explains that these two are the lowest-ranked members of the A-rank clan. Naoki gets a closer look at Allan and mockingly questions if the rookie will be okay, noting that he looks incredibly weak. Hina tries to pull her partner back by his ear to apologize for the rudeness, but the tension only grows when the Lancers see Allan's status. Upon realizing he is only a level 27 crafter, Naoki dismisses the profession as a terrible job. Luckily, Hina recognizes the name and asks if he is the same Allan who cleared the Crystal Sky Castle with Melissa the day before. Naoki is stunned by the claim, but Flynn simply laughs and admits that the feat is quite impressive. When our hero asks if the master was also unaware of his identity, Flynn explains that he had only caught a glimpse of the commotion at the clan association and decided to recruit him based on the sheer amount of attention he was receiving. Hina is thrilled at the prospect of partnering with someone famous, but Naoki remains defensive. He tries to downplay the achievement by suggesting Allan simply leached off Melissa's celebrity status. Flynn encourages the trio to go out for a hunt immediately so they can get a handle on each other's abilities. Naoki bumps into Allan and arrogantly tells the newbie that now is his only chance to admit he is weak. Our protagonist finds the constant posturing annoying and decides the fastest way through the situation is to simply flatter the senior. He raises his hands in a submissive gesture and lies, claiming that Melissa totally dominated the dungeon while he did nothing. This satisfies Naoki's ego, and he loudly tells the junior not to sweat it before leading the group out. As they leave, Flynn watches them with a thoughtful look. He knows Allan is lying, as it is physically impossible for a level 27 player to even reach the Sky Castle without a unique method. He concludes that an adventurer who makes the impossible happen is far more than a mere leech. The group arrives at the Forest of Trents, an area recommended for level 35 players. Allan notes to himself that he usually avoided this place in the original game as the experience points were poor for the effort required. Hina explains that the forest is filled with monsters called Trents that mimic ordinary trees, making them impossible to spot without detection skills. When our boy offers to craft some detection items to help, Naoki tells him not to underestimate them. However, Allan's sharp instincts allow him to sense a threat before the veterans do. He warns them to watch their left just as a level 35 Trent emerges with glowing red eyes. The group dodges the initial strike, and the two lancers quickly coordinate their movements. Allan watches them work, observing how typical adventurers fight through teamwork and spear techniques. Naoki grins and asks what the newbie thinks of their skill, and Allan neutrally responds that it isn't bad. This lukewarm praise infuriates Naoki, but Hina tells him to focus as they finish off the first monster. Suddenly, 3 more Trents emerge from the shadows and surround them. Naoki decides this is the perfect time for the rookie to prove himself, promising to back him up if things go wrong. Allan finds the offer reassuring and prepares to act. Blue energy appears around his palm as he activates his craft skill. In an instant, a black Gatling gun materializes in his hands, leaving his partners in total shock. Allan reasons that while he could craft a thermal scope to identify the hidden enemies, it is much faster to simply mow down the entire area. He pulls the trigger, and the forest is filled with the flames of gunfires. The sheer volume of the barrage levels the trees and vaporizes the monsters instantly. As the dust clears, Allan stands with his smoking weapon and calmly tells his senior that he managed to handle the situation. Hina is in awe of the destruction, while Naoki is pale with terror, though he still tries to act tough by calling it a decent job for a beginner. The victory is cut short when Allan senses someone else in the darkness. A man emerges from the trees with a maniacal smile. It is Lucas, the bully from the earlier dungeon, and he makes it clear he has finally tracked Allan down for a confrontation. Our protagonist simply looks back at his old rival with a completely uninterested expression. When Allan honestly asks who he is, Lucas begins shaking with rage, screaming at the top of his lungs. He is desperate for recognition, reminding the group that Allan embarrassed him back at the wolf mine. Our protagonist remains calm, logically questioning how breaking a record is supposed to be embarrassing for someone else. This dismissive attitude causes Naoki and Hina to watch from the sidelines, feeling unsettled by the man's frightening behavior. To prove his superiority, Lucas displays a status box showing he has reached level 73. Allan observes this and realizes that Lucas has leveled up 8 times in just 1 week. He notes that by the standards of this world, such growth is incredibly efficient. Lucas claims this effort was entirely for the purpose of defeating him, but our hero finds the idea of a fight pointless. He points out that they are not in an instance dungeon, so there is no way to compete over clear times. This forces Lucas to draw a sword, demanding a one-on-one duel immediately. When Allan asks about his previous teammates, Lucas laughs and explains that he ditched those useless scrubs to focus on his revenge. Naoki and Hina find this behavior dirty and unfair, but Lucas shuts them down with a terrifying red-eyed glare that sends them recoiling in fear. Our protagonist decides to accept the challenge even though he believes a duel gives him too much of an advantage. He materializes a handgun, but Lucas reacts with hysterical laughter. Having threatened people back at the wolf mine for information, Lucas believes he knows the secret of the weapon. He claims the guns only work on monsters and are useless against humans. He even mockingly suggests that Allan should craft a sword if he wants a real chance. Without hesitation, our hero pulls the trigger. The bullet grazes the top of Lucas's ear, causing blood to splatter and leaving the bully in agonizing shock. Allan stands tall over his opponent, pointing the smoking barrel at him while explaining that the man's intelligence is completely out of date. Luckily for Lucas, the shot was just a scratch, but the terror of the moment causes him to collapse and clutch his head. Allan stands over him, promising that the next shot will go straight through if he doesn't leave. This threat works perfectly, and the bully scrambles to his feet, fleeing into the woods while shouting a desperate parting warning. As the gun dissolves into blue energy, Naoki is left in disbelief that a level 27 could so easily brush off a level 73. Meanwhile, Hina watches Allan with sparkling eyes and a deep blush, finding him incredibly cool. This shift in her attention leaves Naoki feeling shocked and jealous. The party eventually begins moving deeper into the forest to find the Treant King. Hina skips along beside Allan, praising him for being so reliable and proving that crafters can be strong depending on the user. Allan notes that the job has many quirks but fits his personality perfectly. When he asks Hina why she chose to be a lancer, she begins to fidget and blush. This interaction causes Naoki to sweat with jealousy, fearing that the newcomer is going to steal his childhood friend away. To prevent further bonding, Naoki lunges between them and demands that Hina focus on the surroundings. He then grabs Allan and marches him away into the trees for a private meeting, leaving a confused Hina sitting on the ground. Once they are alone, Naoki reveals that the strategy meeting was just an excuse. He suddenly drops to his knees and bows his head to the ground, begging Allan to stay away from Hina. He confesses that he has deep romantic feelings for her, and that Allan's impressive performance is making it hard for him to stand out. Our boy lets out a long sigh of exhaustion, finding the drama to be a major pain. Since he has no interest in romance, he decides it is more efficient to help the two get together quickly so he can get back to his grind. He proposes a plan where he will pretend to struggle during the upcoming boss fight, allowing Naoki to step in and save the day. Naoki is overjoyed by the offer and tries to hug Allan, who quickly pushes him away. As the group reaches a clearing, they are faced with the Trent King, a boss with 3 eyes and a beard of moss. Hina is worried, but Allan tells the two of them to stay back. He activates his craft skill to materialize an assault rifle, purposefully adjusting the attack power to a measly level 5. He thinks to himself that while it isn't 0, it should be weak enough to sell the act. Naoki and Hina are impressed by the new weapon, but when Allan begins firing, the bullets do no visible damage. He puts on a dramatic, panicked performance, acting as if the settings are broken and he is about to be defeated. Seeing his opening, Naoki roars and charges past him with a heroic expression. He tells Hina to watch his display and unleashes a flurry of spear strikes that carve through the monster's wood. Hina is genuinely amazed and blushes at his skill, while Allan watches with a bored, deadpan look. He figures it will take some time, but Naoki should be able to finish it. Unfortunately, Naoki gets overconfident and begins taunting the boss. This backfires when he lands on a root and the ground cracks beneath him. The Trent King slams its massive wooden arm down, pinning Naoki face down in the dirt. Our hero watches with a disappointed gaze, realizing his partner has failed even with the help. The monster roars in rage and raises its other arm to crush the terrified Naoki, who can only scream for his life. Since her partner is completely helpless, Hina can only watch the scene while trembling in total terror. Allan watches the struggle and decides he has seen enough. He finds the display hard to witness, so he activates his craft skill with a serious gaze. Energy surround around him as he materializes a large black rocket launcher. A massive, fiery explosion follows immediately, consuming the Trent King and lighting up the dark forest in a sudden burst of fire. This overwhelming destruction leaves both Naoki and Hina in a state of absolute shock. As the smoke clears, the boss is gone, leaving behind only a green magic stone. Our boy approaches the coughing Naoki and checks his own status, noting that the victory has pushed him to level 28. He asks if his partner can stand, prompting Naoki to shout his name in surprise. Hina rushes toward Allan and grabs his arm with sparkly eyes, desperate to know how a level 28 could insta-kill such a powerful boss. This sudden intimacy infuriates Naoki, who stands up abruptly and shakes with anger. He tries to save face by claiming he had the situation under control and tells the others not to butt in. Allan simply shrugs and offers a casual apology to end the argument. However, Hina turns on Naoki with rage, calling him a jerk and an idiot for being so rude to the person who just saved his life. The young Lancers continue to bicker until Hina turns back to Allan with a worried, apologetic look. While our boy finds the shouting a bit extreme, he privately understands that Naoki is just a clueless guy trying to look cool in front of the girl he likes. To smooth things over, Allan tells Hina that the victory actually belongs to Naoki. He lies and claims that he only dealt the finishing blow as the senior had already cornered the monster. This causes Naoki to jump up with a heroic smile, feeling instantly relieved and vindicated. Despite the attempt to boost Naoki's reputation, the plan backfires. Hina hugs Allan tightly, finding him incredibly humble and mature for giving away the credit. She becomes so enamored that she asks him out to dinner alone, causing Naoki's spirit to comically leave his body in a state of defeat. Our hero finds the romantic drama to be a serious pain as they eventually head back to the city. The group transitions to the Holy Guardian clan headquarters to report their progress to Flynn. Hina energetically explains how Allan defeated the boss and chased off a level 73 bully. This catches Flynn's attention, and he reveals that the guild has a file on the swordsman named Lucas, due to his history of causing trouble. The master advises Allan to use the clan's name as a deterrent in the future, which makes our boy realize the true power and influence of a top-tier organization. Flynn congratulates them on a successful mission, but when Hina suggests a welcome party for Allan, the master declines due to his workload. This leads Hina to insist on taking Allan to dinner by herself, much to Naoki's horror. Before they leave, Flynn stops them with a serious expression to announce a special request that came in for the next day. He reveals that a client has specifically nominated Allan for a mission. Hina is impressed by the instant recognition, but Flynn clarifies that this isn't a standard defense job. The requester is Lord Olivia of the frontline city of Bendale, and she wants Allan to distribute his unique weapons, which Hina identifies as guns, to the residents. Flynn admits he has never heard of such technology. Although the mission sounds unusual, Allan accepts immediately. He views the chance to hand out weapons as a great opportunity, as it will allow him to gain massive amounts of passive experience from the residents' future battles. He officially confirms his membership in the clan, but a sudden thought makes him suspicious. He realizes it is incredibly strange for a lord in a distant frontline city to know about a level 28 trial member who just joined. He asks Flynn how the client could possibly have known his location. Flynn dismisses the concern, suggesting the lord likely checked the real-time member roster. He tells Allan to ask Lord Olivia himself if he is truly curious. The two men lock eyes in a tense moment of mutual suspicion. Our hero notes that the flow of information regarding his movements is traveling incredibly fast for someone of his rank. While he agrees to finish the mission perfectly, he cannot shake the feeling that something is wrong. As the trio walks through the capital at sunset, Allan reflects on the timing of the nomination. He begins to wonder if Flynn himself might be a secret member of the Shadow faction working to interfere with his progress. The story continues at the walled city of Bendale, which is serving as the setting for the next stage of the journey. Allan and team are teleported onto a stone walkway, where the two companions react with excitement at their arrival. As they stand near the battlements, the group decides to head inside immediately to begin their mission. However, once they enter the wide streets, our boy notices a troubling lack of foot traffic and realizes that all the shops are closed. This sense of unease grows as he spots several armored soldiers slumped against walls in a state of total exhaustion. The gravity of the situation becomes clear when a soldier on a high wall suddenly shouts a frantic warning for the group to look behind them. A massive level 55 giant lizard crawls out on the ground, shocking Hina since a boss-class monster has managed to infiltrate the city streets. As the creature lunges forward with snapping jaws, Allan leaps high into the air to avoid the strike. While suspended mid-air, he activates his craft ability, causing energy to appear around him. A black rocket launcher materializes in his hands, and he calmly notes that attacking someone the moment they teleport is a serious breach of etiquette. Our hero pulls the trigger while still in flight, unleashing a massive fire that hits the lizard directly and triggers a colossal explosion. He lands gracefully on one knee as the monster is defeated in a single blow, leaving the nearby soldiers and his companions in total disbelief at the power of the weapon. Although Hina is impressed by his skill, the celebration is cut short when a flock of level 40 birds known as mud gastromus charges through the smoke as reinforcements. Before Allan has to fire again, a man riding a horse charges into the scene swinging a halberd. This man slashes through the birds in a single strike, sending blood splattering across the area. The rider stops in front of the group and identifies himself as Gordo, the captain of the Royal Guard. He explains that he has been ordered by Lady Olivia to receive Allan's party. While our protagonist notices that the captain's status is hidden, he follows the man's gesture toward an ornate carriage. Naoki and Hina are in awe of the lavish hospitality, assuming it reflects the high expectations placed on their friend. Gordo confirms this sentiment, explaining that the city's finances are on the brink of collapse given the prolonged war. He reveals that Lady Olivia is pinning her hopes on the modern weapons Allan can create to break the current stalemate. As our boy walks toward the carriage, he resolves to meet these expectations while privately wondering where the Shadow faction targeting him might be lurking. The scene transitions to the Adventurers Guild headquarters, where a high-ranking executive named Zynid sits. He is reviewing a file containing a photograph of the 5 dead assassins, accompanied by reports detailing how Allan counterattacked and defeated them in the wasteland. The documents also confirm that the target has joined the Holy Guardian clan and is currently being tracked on his way to Bendale. Zynid looks up with a stern gaze, noting that Bendale is unfortunately too far away for their surveillance to reach. He recognizes that Allan is the one and only person capable of creating the unknown weapon known as a gun, and he decides he must act immediately before the young crafter becomes a permanent obstacle. The office doors open to admit a man in a yellow suit followed by a girl in blue overalls. Zynid greets the newcomer as Hiroshi, the #1 crafter in the kingdom, who holds an impressive level of 175. While Hiroshi is a legend, Zynid is initially skeptical of the girl, as she is not the legendary blacksmith Benjamin he was expecting. The red-haired girl, Annette, confidently introduces herself as Benjamin's daughter and a level 13 blacksmith. She claims that her knowledge is a perfect match for her father's, and since Benjamin vouches for her, Zynid agrees to begin the briefing. Zynid places an AK-47 on the table, ordering the pair to analyze its structure. As they lean in, Annette is struck by the strange shape, while Hiroshi admits the physical object is much more complex than the footage he had seen. The master crafter picks up the rifle to examine its mechanics, noting its 30-round capacity and the fact that it becomes disabled for a few seconds during its automatic reload. Comparing it to a crossbow, Hiroshi pulls the trigger and unleashes a series of rapid fires that completely obliterate a training dummy. He laughs with delight at the incredible rate of fire, but both he and Annette assume the creator must be at an impossibly high level to manifest such a thing. Zynid maintains a cold expression and shatters their assumptions by revealing that Allan's level was only 15 when he crafted the weapon. This news leaves Hiroshi and Annette in total shock, as they find it hard to believe a rookie could achieve such results. Zynid insists it is a fact and commissions them to create a duplicate, explaining that even an inferior version would be useful as long as they understand the structure. Because the base power of a crafted weapon is influenced by the creator's level, Annette realizes that if Hiroshi makes a copy, the attack power will be over 10 times greater than Allan's original. Hiroshi breaks into a sinister grin, finding the effort worthwhile. With the analysis underway, Zynid reveals his ultimate plan to organize a dedicated crafter army to produce these guns, while coldly declaring that he will simply have Allan killed. Inside the Gothic stone manor of the frontline city, Allan and his teammates are ushered into a grand audience chamber to meet the local authority. A woman named Olivia sits upon the throne. She introduces herself as the Lord of Bendale and welcomes the group for traveling so far to assist her. While Hina is visibly nervous and whispers to our protagonist about using formal language, Allan maintains his usual casual attitude. Luckily, the Lord is generous and simply laughs off his lack of etiquette, allowing the young crafter to get straight to business. He asks where he should begin the distribution process, but Olivia pauses to request a demonstration first. She explains that as the leader of this territory, she needs to verify the safety and performance of these strange devices before they are handed to her people. Understood. Allan raises his hand and allows Mana to appear, manifesting a modern assault rifle in an instant. The sight leaves Olivia and her guards in a state of awe. Our hero steps forward to explain that while there are various types of firearms, the basic operation is simple. To demonstrate the ease of use, he suddenly aims the rifle at Naoki and pulls the trigger, riddling his teammate with bullets fire. Although Naoki falls backward in a panic and screams in anger, Allan remains perfectly composed. He explains that he purposely placed a restriction on the weapon so it deals 0 damage to humans, noting with a dry wit that Naoki was simply too easy of a target to pass up. Olivia is marvelously impressed by the display. Realizing that these weapons allow even ordinary residents to fight with minimal risk, she envisions her people firing from atop the city walls, which would significantly lighten the burden on her exhausted soldiers. However, Hina is concerned about why the Lord is involving civilians at all, as she assumes the professional defense clans should be enough. Olivia's expression turns solemn as she explains the harsh reality of their situation. Because the Demon Lord's army attacks several times a month, the city must maintain a permanent state of readiness. The maintenance costs for hiring multiple defense clans are enormous, and despite government subsidies, the city's finances are completely strained. Allan clarifies for a confused Hina that the city is essentially running out of money, making the rebuilding of the economy a pressing and urgent issue. Hina is impressed by our boy's vocabulary, which causes her to blush while Naoki grumbles in jealousy. Allan cuts the small talk short, noting that he can only craft 99 weapons at a time and wants to maximize his efficiency. Olivia directs them to a distribution point in the central plaza and receives the rifle Allan used for the demo as a personal gift. As the group is led away by a guard, Olivia and her captain Gordo stay behind to discuss the situation. They find it impossible to believe that a level 28 could produce gear with such high performance, leading them to suspect Allan has a secret trick. Olivia reflects on the guild executive's recent interest in the boy, noting that his base attack power is inexplicably high for someone without any gear or accessories. She looks out with a serious gaze, wondering if Allan might actually be the specific vessel destined to defeat the Demon Lord. The scene transitions to the central plaza, where residents are busy gathering around crates of black rifles and rocket launchers. While some are worried about their ability to use such advanced technology, the high stats on the gear give them a sense of hope. Meanwhile, the trio takes a break at a local tavern. Even while eating pizza, Allan's hand glows with blue mana as he continues to craft weapons in the background, a display of multitasking that Naoki finds incredible. Hina leans in to ask why he doesn't wear any accessories, pointing out that his firepower would grow even further if he boosted his base stats. Allan's current status shows an attack power of only 56, which makes Hina realize that his strength is already so high that gear seems unnecessary to him. Naoki is jealous of this indifference, but our hero corrects them. He explains that while he doesn't care about attack boosts, he is actually interested in defensive accessories that nullify poison, paralysis, or other status ailments. He reminds himself that unlike the game, dying here is permanent, so he needs to prioritize survival gear soon. This moment of reflection is suddenly shattered by a violent rumble that shakes the entire building. A soldier bursts through the tavern door in a state of pure panic, announcing that the Demon Lord's army has launched a fresh attack. While his teammates look on in shock, Allan remains calm, ready to see his weapons put to the ultimate test. Outside the towering walls of Bendale, a massive enemy horde stretches across the valley. High above on the battlements, Allan prepares a crowd of armed residents for battle, much to the confusion of a rival adventuring party nearby. A woman in a witch hat and a man in a brown vest mock the scene, assuming our boy and his teammates are low-level rookies. The young crafter ignores the insults to focus on training a resident to use a rocket launcher, explaining the simple mechanics of aiming and firing. While his partners cheer, the witchwoman's condescending smile vanishes when she realizes they are actually members of the elite Holy Guardian clan. Despite this, the large man remains dismissive, labeling Allan and his friends as mere bottom feeders of a major organization. The witchwoman continues her assessment and notes that the level 28 crafter is the one who truly bothers her. She finds it hard to believe a low-level player could be significant. Meanwhile, our protagonist surveys the staggering number of enemies below. He observes that the monsters are around level 50, making them a formidable threat for a standard defense. Luckily, the local captain in silver plate armor takes command and orders everyone to prepare for ranged attacks. As the residents line up their rocket launchers, the witch woman and a nearby archer prepare their own traditional magic and arrows. The captain yells at the top of his lungs to give the firing command. With Allan distributing high-powered weaponry, the resulting volley creates a series of massive muzzle flashes. A chain of colossal explosions rips through the opponent army at the base of the wall, instantly vaporizing half of the enemy forces. As smoke drifts across the battlements, Naoki and Hina cough in the haze, stunned by the sheer destructive power. This massive kill count triggers a level-up notification for our hero, pushing him from level 28 to 30. The captain stands at the edge of the wall in total shock, realizing that half the army was wiped out in a single moment. An excited resident approaches Allan to ask if they can use the weapons again, and our boy points out that the gear has already reloaded. He encourages them to give the monsters another taste of their power. The residents fire a second time, blowing away the remaining enemies with ease. They celebrate the fact that they no longer have to fear the Demon King's remnant, as long as they have these tools. The rival adventurers are left speechless by the carnage. The captain clenches his teeth in a cold sweat, acknowledging that while he knew the weapons were strong, their clearing power when used by a group is beyond anything he imagined. Our protagonist turns to the captain and notes that while the initial waves are gone, a few escapees are still closing in. He asks for new orders, prompting the captain to tell the residents to fall back so the professional soldiers can handle the stragglers. The archers fire a volley of arrows, but the witch woman and her team sit against the ramparts looking defeated, realizing there is no work left for them to do. The captain raises his fist and declares a historic triumph with 0 casualties. While the townspeople crowd around Allan to thank him for ending the fight so quickly, Hina notices that Allan looks unhappy. He admits that he actually missed out on a rare chance to level up. Hina is confused since he just gained 2 levels, but he explains that given the number of enemies, he should have gained at least 10 levels if not for the level cap. Hina then remembers the beginner trial at the royal capital. Since the system prevents adventurers from exceeding level 30 without passing this official test, all that potential experience was effectively wasted. Our boy looks down at the magic stones on the battlefield, regretting that such a massive opportunity for experience won't likely happen again soon. His thoughts are interrupted when Lord Olivia approaches and claps her hands to congratulate him. While the large man from the other clan ogles the lord, the witch woman scolds him for being an idiot. Olivia speaks with her captain, admitting she was shocked to find the battle was over before she even arrived to watch. She notices that the weapons used by the residents are different from the one she received, and Allan clarifies that he specialized these for area of effect damage to suit the defensive situation. Olivia is highly satisfied and makes a bold announcement. As the residents can now defend themselves, she is terminating the contracts of every other defense clan except for the Holy Guardian. Furthermore, she decides to triple the Holy Guardian's fee as a usage payment for the weapons. This causes Hina and Naoki to celebrate, but the large man from the rival clan begs her to reconsider, claiming his small group won't survive without the work. Olivia looks at him with a dark, menacing aura and coldly asks if his survival has anything to do with her town. She explains that since the high maintenance costs were bleeding the city dry, it is only natural to cut ties with unnecessary groups. The residents join in, yelling at the departing adventurers and calling them useless tax thieves. The large man looks in shame, though Olivia offers a small apology by covering their teleportation costs. As the rival group leaves, the large man glares back with intense hatred. Hina and Naoki feel a bit guilty about stealing the jobs of fellow professionals, but Olivia reassures them. She points out that while the other clans lost money, Allan has brought peace and smiles back to a town that was struggling to survive. She encourages him to keep delivering these smiles to every town fighting the war. While the companions respond enthusiastically, the large man from the other clan is sweating with rage. He realizes that if Allan spreads these weapons to other cities, his entire industry will collapse. Our guy begins walking along the battlements, eager to finish the distribution so he can return to the capital for his trial. Suddenly, the large man runs up behind him and asks to get a closer look at a weapon. Before our boy can react, the man kicks him in the back with all his might, sending him flying off the towering wall. Olivia watches in horror as the young crafter disappears over the edge. The man looks down and laughs maniacally, certain that the fall will kill the protagonist and prevent the weapons from ever circulating further.